Welcome to CH Pleasure Brews. I'm Tim, and tonight I'm joined by my dear friends Mormonator and aka Josh. Say hi, Josh.
Hello.
And Mr. Ashana Miller, aka Jamaican Dude.
What's that?
How you doing? So we decided we were going to answer a question from the Ask a Spike Q&A forum. I have two spikes with me. So Mr. Mormonator, where can people find you, good sir?
Well, you can find me on Twitter most of the time. I'm usually just lurking, but that'll be twitter.com/the_Mormonator. Nowadays, I spend most of my time either on the MTG Marketplace, which is my own personal project, a Discord meant for buying, selling, and trading, or on PlayDH.
Also link below.
Also linked below. Both links are below.
And Sean, where can people find you, good sir?
Oh, me. You can find me on Facebook under Shauna Miller. You can find me on Instagram under Shauna Miller. You can find me on many other Discord. I think I'm also on the Ractos Discord. I had a visit there in a while. But Nexus, you can find me on CDH Brews. You do have to ping me if you want my attention. You
gotta wait 15 minutes.
You also have to wait island time to get a hold of me, so be prepared to wait. You can find me on the Narset Discord if you want to play Narset, and other various places. We'll be here for a long time if you did that. But yeah, so on Discord you can find me as Jamaican Dude, and other places, social media as Shauna Miller.
And our question tonight was submitted by LJ. From the Reflecting Pool. Hi, LJ. How you doing, buddy? And his question is, can you go over the merits and the advantages and disadvantages? I'm going to paraphrase here. The advantages and disadvantages of playing one particular deck long-term versus the merits and advantages and disadvantages of hopping from strategy to strategy or decks. Anybody want to start?
I think I would love to start because I think we all here played one deck religiously, I think, for a while. Don't know if anyone here played Frog as long as I played Frog, but I religiously was a Get Wrong Monster player for at least 2 years, where I would not touch another deck. I wouldn't even consider another color combination. It was just Get Wrong. And I think the merits of that was, if you go into a tournament, if you enter a tournament, you should never enter a tournament with the best deck, in my opinion. You shouldn't go play the best deck. I think you should play the deck you have the most reps at. So the deck you can, even though they have a bad matchup, because of your experience with the deck, you can beat that bad matchup because you know your deck inside and out. You know all the niche interactions where someone who didn't play the deck as long does not have those interaction. Thus, you know everything about it. You know all the ways you can win. If your combos get exiled, you know how to win. But that is the pro of playing one deck religiously. The cons of it is you don't know what other decks do well. So the other reason to bounce around from deck to deck is you know how that deck plays. You know their strong points and their weak points. And when you play against that deck, you can know how to beat that deck. In my experience of it, like if I feel like there's a deck I'm losing to a lot, I will. There's this saying where you said you lose it, you beat them, or you join them. So I normally go to the deck where, like, I lost to Najila for a long time when everyone was on Najila for a very good hardy portion of the meta, where it was just Najila. And I kept losing to it. I was like, I'm going to build a deck. I want to see how this deck works. And what's the where I can interact with it. And the way you interact with Najila is a commander-centric deck. You kill Najila. You don't let Najila make tokens. Nah, it wasn't as simple because nobody wants to counter a commander. Like, it's commander. You want to play your general. And everybody wants you to play the general. But the thing with that general is when it attacks and it makes its warriors, it keeps spiraling, snowballing out of control. Same thing with Winota. And I keep trying to tell people with Winota, not because it's Boros and Boros is a bad color. Please kill Winota. Kill it. Kill it with fire.
Kill it dead.
Do not let that card attack. Because all you're going to happen is it's going to flip and it's going to flood the board and you're going to die. And you're going to die a death with a multiple humans. And I think Winota for that is the best aggro deck. But I went off topic. Yeah, that is the advantages of playing multiple decks. The disadvantages are you don't know the deck well. So you're a master of many things. You're competent of a lot of decks, but you're a master of none.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. So you can pilot anything, but you don't know any deck in depth. And I think you should at least have one go-to deck. And for the person who submitted this deck for LJ is a religious Edric player.
Edric, religiously.
Edric. That is literally all he plays. He will dabble in other things, and when you see him play a Dawson deck, it's like, whoa, you know other colors other than green-blue. But on Edric is the most threatening thing you can see with an Edric player. Like, you respect even if you don't respect the deck, you'll have to respect the pilot. And that's what playing one deck consistently does. That's my take.
What about you, Josh?
Yeah, to kind of build on that, like Shani said, you do start to build a bit of a reputation if you are focusing on one particular deck and doing a lot with it. Like, for example, if you're playing against me and if you want to get in my head and really throw me off my game, you just have to tell me that you've been playing Godo for like the past 3 years and like only Godo. I'll lose it. I'll lose my composure. And I'll be really scared because I'll sit there and I'll be like, goodness, I am playing against someone who knows the perfect time to pull triggers, is very attentive to board state, knows exactly what barrels they're looking down when they're ready to go for their Godo win, and they know exactly what hands to mulligan to. They know exactly the probability of getting the things that they need for their next. It's those things. Those start to all rush through my mind. Like, I am now playing against a master. I am not playing against someone who has picked up the list recently and is still kind of working it out. I am playing against somebody who knows the deck inside and out, who is never going to give up, is never going to once. They're probably never going to get tilted either because...
Wait a minute, you don't just count to 11, then 13, then 15?
Don't get me wrong, you can do that. And for the most part, there are a lot of players who do that. They pick up Godo, they read the primer that really just says count to 11. And you're good to go. But for someone who dedicates a lot of time to that,
right, there's a lot more nuance.
Gitrog player, yeah, you sit there and you're like, when they start to make moves, you begin to get worried because it means that they have seen the opening that they've seen a million other times that they've played this list. And they're going for it. Yep. So that's a merit of. You can look at that as a good thing or a bad thing, whether or not you like the reputation that follows you around for playing a deck for a really long period of time. Because it brings a level of respect from your opponents, and it should bring a challenge to you as well. That people will be on their guard because of how long.
Yeah, they will. It's much easier to sneak wins in when they think you're a scrub.
Yep, ups and downs.
Scrub.
Now, I do think a downside of playing one list too long is, yes, you might be able to play CDH a lot. And just looking at colors and commanders and getting that experience, you'll know kind of where your opponents are going with things. But if you haven't really played those lists, it is hard to keep up with every decision that they might make. I don't know. If you're playing against a very dedicated, we'll just say like a Turbo Mouse pilot, you can guess what their first tutor might be. It might be Ad Nauseam or some kind of ramp card that gets them to Ad Nauseam. However, if that person has been playing Kess console for the past, I don't know, how long has Kess console been a thing? 5
It
years?
says 2016, 2017, 3-4 years. Yeah, 3-5 years.
They might not be going for that because they have played this deck so often. They know that conception of, oh, okay, this person's just going for ad nauseum. Instead, they go and get something else. And if you are focusing so much on one deck for such a long period of time, instead of kind of reaching out and getting a feel for things, you might start to get sidelined. Not sidelined. Can't say gaslighted either. You start to get tricked by those players who have had more experience.
Yeah. So, like for me, I the advantages of playing a deck like long term is that you do get very intimate with that list. The downside is that because you're intimate with that list, a lot of times those intimacies can turn into bad habits or complacency, and those bad habits will get reinforced because you know the deck so deeply and not everybody else does. The other issue that has been at least mentioned and alluded to is that because you're stuck on that deck, or not stuck, but because you're playing that one deck so religiously for so long, you might play against other decks, but you haven't played other decks, and therefore even so much as your deck building, like your card choices, can get stagnant because you're not up to date on what necessarily everybody else is doing, or you might think that a certain card will combat a certain deck or a certain type of meta in a certain way, and because you actually haven't taken the time to get like, even if you just played like 10 games with the other deck, like, is enough to get a feel for it. Like, you won't intimately know it, but you'll be able to play it. Like, you'll have played it enough to kind of begin to kind of see what it does, especially if you're an experienced pilot. So I personally think that while you can have like a main deck that you play, say, most of the time, or maybe a couple of decks that you play predominantly, I do think that it's healthy for a player to at least at some point and periodically rotate into new lists. Like, it was one of the big things that I always pushed for with players. Like when people would first, like when people were playing on the Nexus and they would get off the apprenticeship, the first thing they would want to do is just play their deck, and they would only want to play their deck. And one of the big things that I would push for is that you still need to have established lists in your repertoire and in your rotation, because you can get stuck in ruts and bad habits just simply from not being current with the meta, not knowing how the tech works, and how these actual strategies and the pacing and the sequencing, and some of that is because when you play those decks and you don't know them very well, you fumble. So then you see the line after the fact that you may not have seen before. And I'm not saying you got to play them all the time and never to play your thing. I'm just saying it's always good to kind of rotate through, and kind of get outside the box a little bit.
I agree with that. Part of being a good CDH player is making the right choice at the right time.
Yeah.
And the more that you play a deck, the more likely you are to make that right choice. Mm-hmm. I have a question. This came to mind. I don't know if this is true. I've never actually tested this. If you are one of those people who is dedicating a lot of their time to one particular deck or strategy, do you think that person has a worse time in mirror matches? Because they don't know how to analyze. They don't know how to analyze that other person. Because if you look at them as the same level as you, you might be you could start overthinking the choices that they make, when in reality they just go for maybe the choices that a new player is making.
I don't know. What about you, Sean?
From my experience, I've had a funny story with this one where cause I had the name of a Get Rock player, and I was invited to a pod where I had to play the three curators of Getrog to pass the so-called Getrog test to get the title of Papa Toad, and it was me, Noobsaurus, Kibitson, and Leptis, and we all were playing Getrog, and it was the idea of it was we all know the level of each player. And the thing was, do you race because it's green black and no one is playing Counter Magic? Or do you try to yeet one person, and then go off over it? And at this time, Flash Hulk was a thing, and people were running what is that instant speed exile card?
Funeral Charm?
No. It had split second.
Oh, Extirpate.
Extirpate. People
And
were
Surgical.
playing Extirpate and Surgical in this current meta because it was Hulk. And we played, and I thought that was very interesting. But for me, if I played the mirror match, I guess I could say I am cocky because I never thought that player was on my level. I always thought if the mirror match that I was the better player in the mirror match. So I could always, or I would know that they're playing the database list from what was on it, and mine was built differently. So I could always go over the top of their win condition. So I guess I was so confident in my gameplay that the mirror match was.
How'd that game go, by the way?
I lost. I was the first to go off, and I lost my dive because everyone mulled to Extirpate.
Of course they
And
did.
that was it. And
That was it.
that game ended in Kozilek beats because everyone's deck work got exiled. And, the game ended in a Titan, two people having Titans and just nuking each other out of the game. The game ended with just whoever attacked last had to sacrifice their Kozilek. Because of the Annihilator trigger. Because it had nothing else to sacrifice. So,
oh man, that's so rough, dude.
Yeah, no, it was fun, but it was rough. So that's how I take mirror matches. Have you had a mirror match with your with Kirksa before?
I don't think I've ever actually experienced a mirror match before.
Oh, interesting.
The closest thing that I've experienced to a mirror match were I play a Thrasios File Smasher list. My opponent was on 4C Rashmi. But I can't call that a mirror match because, partners, we're almost just using it for the colors.
Right.
Strategies are pick and choose. So I was on Divergent Transformations. And I won that game, not because I was a better player, but because my opponent, looking at this, what he thought was a mirror match, was not prepared for
going fast.
Speed divergent, like an instant speed divergent transformation.
Right.
He was expecting a grind to the bone match.
Right.
Yeah.
And he got comboed out. What happened to that combo? Like, everybody just went away from Divergent. That's sad. I enjoyed it when it was a thing.
I still play it. That's actually probably one of my favorite lists.
I'm glad you still play it.
What's the creatures you get with your Divergent?
It's Leveler Thassa's Oracle. Don't get me wrong, I respect people that like the Spellseeker Thassa's Oracle line, but I love the idea of being able to win through a rule of law. And, as soon as I see that stack deck at the table, I'm like, ooh, exactly what.
Right. Well, and it's less points of interaction because you're not tutoring up a spell, you're not casting another spell. You just, once you've been able to force through the Divergent, you can threaten the win.
Leveler. Yeah. I haven't heard that in a long time.
Could you imagine trying to do the Divergent Thassa's Oracle Spellseeker line, and with the Spellseeker trigger on the stack, someone flashes in an 8 and 9 sensor?
Or an op agent?
Or an op agent, or an op agent, this day. It's just, they don't even do it in response to the divergent transformations. They let you do that. They let you
they let you
They let you
overextend.
walk into it, yeah.
Because
Love
people
those
like
plays.
eating people, man.
No, it just feels there's some level of it just strokes your ego when you can just yeet someone
You're just
on the last possible second. Like, just stroke your ego so lovingly. I enjoy it sometimes. Especially do it to you, Tim. I do enjoy just.
That's okay. I think I return in kind at least as often as you do.
When you think you just have the win, man, you're like, okay, I'm doing all of this, and someone said, wait. I have interaction, and they're like, why didn't you interact? Because I wanted to eat you.
Yeah,
your blood boils. That's what I want.
When I blood boil is when everybody like lets you start shortcutting, and then they're like, hold on, and I'm like, really?
Yes.
That's why I've just started asking, should I shortcut or do I need to manually do this? Because I got tired of that. Because people would like essentially let you infer that you can shortcut until you actually shortcut, because when you shortcut, you kind of get a little sloppy and you skip steps. And then all of a sudden they got all these plans,
Yep.
Yeah. So now I ask, do I need to walk this in? And then Sean gets grumpy because I make him wait 15 minutes because you're making me manually do it because you eat me one time and you feel good about it. Well, I'm going to punish you now.
Good times.
I just recently got yeeted. I was playing a Snoop deck and someone did opposition agent in response to my Goblin Recruiter.
Oh,
I know people make fun of Doomsday and opposition agent and how like you lose the game. I don't think that feels as bad as Goblin Recruiter, because when you take a Goblin Recruiter from a Snoop player, you get everything under the sun. You get not Dualcaster, you get Dockside Extortionist,
Goblin Matron.
You just get all the goblins that are in the deck, and you just take them. You hoard them under your corner. Yeah, no, that feels pretty bad.
Yeah, that's bad.
I thought I think intuition still's a little worse. Or is on the same playing field. Intuition, and then someone does op agent. And you're like, you just get the best 3 cards in my deck, and James.
What I heard about it, I think the argument was made that if you op agent an intuition or a doomsday, other players will be encouraged to interact with you at that point because they don't want you to have access to whatever you're getting from that. Goblin Recruiter was like this gray zone. They were like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, have that.
You can have all the goblins.
Let them have all the goblins, like the best, because the best thing they get out of that is Dockside Extortionist. And so for them, it's kind of like, 3 mana Dockside Extortionist. I'm like, no, please don't let it do this.
No. So have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks. It was
Bye.